All right, first and foremost, give all praise to you. How about Shimmy Al Shabrak Thumb? And sincere greeting to all the brothers and sisters scattered across the four corners, teaching this word with sincerity and charity. I'm Brother Phoenix with Prince of Power Israelites. Short discussion. It may be a little lengthy, but we're gonna talk about the psyche of the biblical woman. The psyche of the biblical woman, to get into the mental aspect of how she was thinking, to consider how she felt back in those times on her treatment, and to how she was treated, and we could just to understand the culture. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times we're trying to build marriages based off the text and not really understand the biblical culture that surrounded marriage, that's around, and we trying to pick and choose what we wanna grab out of this thing. So let's see another aspect, and this is only one. This is only one of many aspects of biblical marriage within the culture, and this is the psyche of the biblical woman. We need to understand how she was thinking, especially if we're gonna compare her to the modern woman. Right? And one thing we shouldn't do is do the comparison, because they're under different circumstances. One is under a circumstance where she was totally provided for by her Lord, which is in the biblical context, her husband. And then another is now, she's gonna have to work. And in a lot of cases, she making more money. She's covering the husband in a lot of cases. You know what I'm saying? On top, and then we want her to do the same things and have the same reverence that she has, the same respect that she has from her husband, and that respect is earned, reverence is earned, and these modern women will do it, but it's of course it's dealt with what I'm saying, it's circumstantial. But one of the most important things we need to understand is what was the main purpose of the biblical woman. What was her main objective? What was the greatest thing that she could provide for her husband? All right, what was the most important thing, the most greatest assignment that she had? Think about that. All right, and it was provide children. Okay, it was for her to provide children. More importantly, to provide a son. Okay, you wanted a son to have an inheritance, to leave an inheritance, and she wanted a son so that that son can get inheritance, and she can stay on that inheritance. She can continue to dwell among that inheritance. We got to understand that our forefathers, they owned cities. They were named after cities. These people that you're comparing yourself to, and you want a marriage like this person, like this brother had his own city. You know what I'm saying? He was naming cities. He was naming territories of land because they had so much land. They had so much abundance that I can't be around you. We going to have to separate, brother, because both of our livestock aren't going to be able to be sustained in this particular area together. We going to have to spread out. So there was abundance in a lot of our forefathers. When we picking and choosing, we have to understand that also. But back to the most important thing was for her to have a child, and we see that. Matter of fact, you know what I'm saying, and I'm pulling from, this was a lecture that I did. We had a whole class on this whole thing, about 14-15 slides, just dealing with the psyche, and we understand this. Like I said, I'm not gonna pull a lot of scripture. I'm just gonna summarize a lot of this stuff because I'm playing it on, a lot of these stories, right? Leah and Rachel with Jacob. The incident with Jacob and Tamar. Lot and his daughters. A lot of these incidents, right? Okay. And a lot of these foremothers, right? A lot of these foremothers who were barren. Okay. Barrenness was almost a curse. Barrenness was considered like a curse and a reproach. This is why you go into the Isaiah 6, the Isaiah 3, and I think it's 3 and 16, 3 to 12, when they'll be latching on to 7 women latching on to take away this reproach. They saying we got our own food, we'll eat our own food, we have our own, but take away this reproach. If a woman does not have a son, she gets no inheritance, she has nowhere to go, she will be left gleaning the field or to go out and be a prostitute. Those are her options. She would be gleaning the field somewhere, or she would be she would be a prostitute. And so you even see that with Boaz, not with, well, with Ruth. Um, and she having to go and glean the fields once, what I'm saying, her husband had passed and they had no inheritance. And they end up going back with, Ruth ended up going back with the Israelite family back into their land, and she was gleaning the fields. Now, if that wasn't an option, you would be going into the temple being a prostitute also. So barrenness for a woman it was like a curse, man. It was something they thought about every day. Why can't I give this man a son? And so you see a lot of the folk mothers actually praying for this. Like, man, I need a son. Please give me a son. Let me give my husband a son. I'll give you a couple examples of that. Sarah was barren in Genesis 11:30. Rebecca was barren in Genesis 25:21. Elizabeth was barren in Luke 1:7. Manoah's wife was barren in Judges 13:2-5. And Hannah was also barren, who was in 1 Samuel 11-28. 11-28, and then she actually sent the prayer out in 1 Samuel 2, 1-10. You got to just rewind that back. We're not going to read those. Even Samson's mother, man, she sent up a prayer. She prayed for a son. All right, and all these women that we just named, Sarah, Rebecca, Elizabeth, Manoah's wife, all these women were rescued from this barrenness. Right, they were rescued. They sent up a prayer and they were rescued from this barrenness and was actually given sons. Even Leah and Rachel, when they was battling over providing Jacob's sons. That was one of the most important things. I mean, we must understand that. Are we taking wives for that reason? Are we taking wives begging our wife, baby, I need you to give me a son? Are we making those attempts to do that? Are we saying I need a wife because I need a son? Is that the intention? Or when we courting these women, and then we gonna see that the courting thing is out of line? It's not biblical. Courting ain't biblical. You know what I'm saying? That's not a biblical. That's not culturally within the text. It's not there. You know what I'm saying? I'm finna inbox her. I'm finna call her up. I'm finna have these little sweet nothings and whisper these sweet nothings to her. I'm finna serenade her, and we finna go on dates, and we finna do all that. You go talk to her father or her lord, whoever's in charge, whatever, brother, uncle, whatever. He pretty much arranges that marriage for his daughter. Now, he may talk to her, you know what I'm saying, but I don't think that's necessarily has to happen. Okay. So barrenness is very vital. That nobody wants to be barren. And the Most High used a lot of barren women, a lot of women who could not have complications, got of old age, could not have children. He ends up giving these women children. You got to understand, it's a whole underdog story. You know what I'm saying? That's why it's not even good to be puffed up about us being Israel, but we have to do it, especially in camps, to build our brothers and sisters up, because we just, we've been at the bottom so long, man. You know what I'm saying? And I said you got to catch the fish before you clean it. So you have to use, Deuteronomy 7:6 and just to let these people know that we are the greatest people on the planet. But he chose us because we were the fewest. You got to understand that. It's an underdog story. And he deals with these women the same too. A lot of these women who were mistreated, he went and he dealt with them. Hagar being thrown out by Sarah, you know what I'm saying? The Most High came in and made her a promise, you know what I'm saying? And gave that child a blessing. So a lot of that mistreatment ends up being a blessing. A lot of those people were rescued from that barrenness, and that was considered a curse. And a lot of men would even divorce you. Okay, let's get into that. A lot of men would even divorce you if you could not give him if that woman could not give him a wife. I mean a son. All right, he would divorce her. That was a means of divorce, or the means of getting another wife. This is why we see in the text a lot of women giving their husbands second wives. Well, here, take my hand, because they want to be able to stay. It's desperation. They want to be able to stay there on that inheritance. Here, take my maid, take my bridesmaid, take my maid servant, and sleep with her and see if she can give you a son, so I can have that inheritance. These multiple wives a lot of times come into play because they not lacking, they not being able to provide that son. I ain't finna keep playing with you. I'm finna go get another wife so I can have these sons. And so that's what we see within the text, man. You know what I'm saying? We see that in the text. Hold on one second. Let me let this foolishness pass by. All right, man. Jake and his folly, man. Anyway, what were we speaking on? We was talking about the barrenness and being a reason for divorce. You know what I'm saying? Being a reason for divorce. Again, because in that society, even a man not having kids, they really didn't even want this person to lead. If you look into the Jewish, you know what I'm saying, these fake Jews, in their society, it's a lot of political positions that you can't be in if you don't have any sons or have any kids. So that was just very important for that woman to be able to give her to give that to her husband. And so we have to add that to that context. Now let's look at some of the stories that actually happened. All right. We take Leah and Rachel. Let's look at this now. Leah and Rachel. Now understand this. Jacob is falling in love with Rachel. And he arranges to marry, he arranges with her father to marry her. All right. He works 7 years. All right. But Rachel has an older sister. Okay. So when they have the feast, after the 7 years are up, Jacob man, I need my wife. Give me my wife, Rachel. They have a feast, and then the father gives him the older daughter and not Rachel. And give her the older daughter, Leah, and not Rachel. So imagine, now let's look at the psyche. Imagine how Leah felt. Did you think Leah liked it? This was that she had some infatuation with Jacob, or even Rachel. Do you think she had any infatuation? This wasn't a thing about getting courted by Jacob or getting courted, Jacob courting Leah. No, this is, man, I want to marry your daughter. Okay, man, you need to work 7 years for me. All right, and then you work the 7 years, and then he gives you the other daughter. Okay, now this other daughter knows she's been given to a man that doesn't want her. Right? She done slept with a man. She knows she jugging on this man. She done slept with this man knowing that he don't want her, that he really wants her younger sister. Right? And so then she listens to Jake after sleeping with him. Okay, and he wakes up and say, "Hey, what are you doing in my bed? Who are you?" Wait a minute. Go to the father and say, "Well, listen, man. I asked you for Rachel. Why did you give me Leah?" And he goes in and tell her, "Well, listen, man, it ain't our culture. You know what I'm saying? Our culture, we give the oldest first. All right, you wait this biblical week out. It's not a 7 year. I know brothers break that down and say it's 7 years. It's just that 7 week ceremony. A lot of the weddings were, a 7 day ceremony. A lot of those weddings lasted 7 days. You'll see that also in that 7 day feast that Samson had for his wedding. So he's like, man, wait out her biblical week, and then you can have her. So he waited another 7 days, and then he ended up getting Rachel also. Okay, but at the same time, we see Rachel coming in, and Leah hearing that this man didn't really want her. All right, and now sisters and siblings growing up, man. Now you and your sibling, y'all probably were competing with each other the whole time. Now y'all sharing the same man. Y'all sharing the same man, and you can see the competition continue on when they actually deal with their kids, and they're having kids. And what comes into play is that the Most High, because Jacob, showed partiality to Rachel, he closed her womb. He closed her womb, and he blessed Leah with a child. And Leah kept producing sons, kept producing sons, kept producing sons, until Rachel took things in her own hands and gave up her handmaiden so she could have a child. You know what I'm saying? Gave up her handmaiden so she could have a child, and then they named them all these certain names. Just talking about the Most High lifting this curse off of me. Again, going to that barrenness. Okay, it was a race. Rachel and Leah are having a race to have who can provide the most children, who can provide the sons. You know what I'm saying? Because that's pretty much what the deal was, man. That was pretty much how you gave your husband reverence. That's that gift that you gave to your husband, and he appreciated that. That's what that husband would want. You know what I'm saying? I want you to provide me more sons. Okay, where are my sons? Why aren't you providing me sons? And so you see that whole context. So when you go back and read that, look at how they're battling with each other to have these sons, man. Because again, it goes into a desperation, and that's their job. That's their main objective, is to make sure that they have sons for their lords. Okay. So we're gonna tie that, and we're gonna go into let's go into the Bathsheba. Let's talk about Bathsheba and David. Now watch this. Now David looks on the balcony, sees Bathsheba, and then calls Bathsheba to his office, or to his penthouse rather. Okay, and so they get officers, and they go get Bathsheba, and they bring her to David, and David looks her down and halves at her. Now, did Bathsheba have a choice in that? Are we sitting here saying that Bathsheba really wanted to sleep with David? I also brought up this story about this woman, this slave. What's her name? Sally Hemings. Go look at her, Sally Hemings. Okay, she was a slave master. Thomas Jefferson was her slave master. Thomas Jefferson was a slave master, and she bore him 6 children. You think she had a choice? When these women on these plantations, and master is calling them to the house, does she got a choice? Right? And so you may say, well, no, Phineas, man, you tripping, brother. No, David didn't do that. That ain't how that went. David was the king. He was ruddy. He was beautiful. Everybody wanted to sleep with David. This woman was a happily married woman. She was happily married to a great soldier that was fighting for his country, that was fighting for the land of Israel, that was fighting for his king. Now, the reason we know this because we see that Bathsheba mourned when she found out her husband was killed. She was left there mourning. Now, let's go back. She's at David's penthouse. She sleeps with David, says he want to have at her. She goes in. David goes into Bathsheba. We got to understand, in a kingdom, everything belongs to the king. Even the people. Everything belongs to the king. Under Yahushua, everything belongs to Yahushua. Under Kim Jong-un, everything belongs to him. And the reputation of the king is based on the condition of the people. That's why we got to take care of the strangers, and got to take care of the poor, and you got to take care of the widows. Everybody got to be straight. It got to be like Dubai. We ain't no homeless. Right? We see these things in there, but let's stay on point. So she's there, and she has to do that, okay? So just understand that psyche of a woman just going in, having to sleep with her king, because her king called her. She got to sleep with him. She is happily married. Her husband is at war. probably missing her husband, right? So even if you wanted to lean that way, say, oh, well, she just wanted a little quick little fling, blah, 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 made a little quick little pop, you know what I'm saying? But, you know what I'm saying, 9 times out of 10, this was like a mental rape. You know what I'm saying? She had to put her emotions aside. She might have even been crying a little bit. She might have been holding back some tears a little bit to get this thing over with and done. Okay? Then she gets pregnant. She finds out she's pregnant. She goes back to Dave and say, listen, man, I'm with child, bro. Like, this thing went too far, man. I'm with child. David, like, man, I don't want the child. Evidently, he don't want the child because he calls Uriah back in, her husband. He calls him back in and tries to get him to sleep with his wife so that he can pretend like that's his child. So David don't even want the child. He don't want the child. He just seen her, lusted after her on that balcony, and called him up to the penthouse and had sex with her. And when she found out she was pregnant, threw her back out and told her, listen, man, we gonna stage something with your husband to try to get, to keep this thing hush hush. She got to keep this thing hush hush. Now imagine her psyche. Imagine what she's feeling. And then that don't work. The Uriah don't even want to go down there and deal with his wife. He might even know something. Wife might have even told him something. The text don't say that, but we know Uriah don't even want to go down there and touch her. He want to go back to battle. So now David, to keep this lie going, David ain't got no choice but go out there, send Uriah out there to die. So now this woman has to come back to David, someone who has sent her husband out to die, and mourn for her husband, and sleep with this man again, and be this man's wife. After he done killed her husband, that she loved because she's mourning for him, to cover up this adultery in this baby. Not only that, the Most High, because of the sinful act, the Most High kills the son. Again, we know the importance of having a son because David is up praying. David's not eating. He's fasting and praying that this sickness passes this son. But the Most High kills this son. So again, now we have this sister dealing with being kind of mentally raped and put into this adultery situation. She had no choice. All right, Master, her Lord, the Lord of her Lord, has called her up to his penthouse to have at her. Kills her husband, and then that act gets her child killed that she's carried. And then she has to continue on and marry this man. And this is why the Most High comes in and births her Solomon. And Solomon comes out of that cesspool of sin. Comes out of that cesspool of hurt and pain. Right? Let's look at another one, man. Let's look at Lot's daughters. Let's look at Lot's daughters. Well, imagine the psyche of hearing this mess now. You got two strangers that came in. Now these are messengers of God. They came in the city, whole city. They want at these two messengers. They want at these two beings that have just entered into the city. Lot's holding them into their house. You have a mob outside ready to tear the building up to get inside of there. Lot opens the door and say, "Nah, why don't you have my two daughters? Don't you have my virgin daughters? You don't have to have these two strangers." And that goes into, there should not be any prostitutes or whores in the land, and fathers do not prostitute thy daughters or cause thy daughters to fall into prostitution, at least the whole land falls into whoredom and sin. You know what I'm saying? So, and you read that text, you say, well, why would a man ever put his daughter into prostitution or lead his daughter? That's exactly what Lot just did. That's exactly what Lot just did. You know what I'm saying? Especially if a daughter is end up barren. Okay, a lot of those women were probably barren that will fall into that prostitution after they've been divorced by their husband because of their barrenness. A lot of times, so they could eat, they will fall into this to the pagan temples to be prostitutes. To be prostitutes, man. You can see that with Judah and Tamar. When Tamar dresses up as a prostitute to make sure that she gets a seed. He finessed her, and then she dresses up to finesse him as a prostitute. He ends up sleeping with her. She ends up getting pregnant. And that's the Most High. Most High doing that stuff, man. Most High doing that. Now your sister, now she pregnant. He opened her womb up and got that and made that happen. Because of, you know what I'm saying, again, him coming into those positions where people are being mistreated. That's how you know they was being mistreated. When the Most High steps in and blesses these women, or, you know what I'm saying, fixes the issue by birthing them with some, you know what I'm saying, prodigal, some great son. I say a prodigal son, but some great son, whether it be a prophet or a great forefather, a great leader, somebody that was written in the text. This is why, and this is why a lot of times they made the text. A lot of these women made the text for this particular reason. So yeah, Tamar even, you know what I'm saying, went into that, and we see, you know what I'm saying, that prostitution being ushered in, and how these things could actually happen. How a father could send his daughter into prostitution, especially if she was barren and she's bringing nothing else. A father might even send his daughter into prostitution to make some money, man. All right, to bring some extra money into the house. All right, just letting anybody sleep with their daughter. They have certain cultures like that in Africa today, where if they had a visitor come in, it's in their culture to let you sleep with their wife or sleep with one of their daughters. And one of the first things they'll do, they'll ask you, hey, are you married? How many kids you have? You have no kids? I'll give you a kid. Because they still have that same mentality, that same psyche, man. But the modern woman, the career woman today, she's not worried about, she's worried about getting a career, worried about, you know what I'm saying, making money and providing. She got another avenue outside of gleaning the field and being a harlot. We have to understand the psyche of these women and what they went through. A lot of these women were just dealt with, harshly. Harshly, man. Even we talk about the Samaritan woman. All right, and this is very important too. A lot of you think that the Samaritan woman, she had 5 husbands and that she was in sin. The text don't say she was in sin. The text don't say the Samaritan woman. She said she had 5 different husbands. It doesn't say she was in sin. It was assumed that she was in sin, but a lot of times when Yahushua would heal somebody, he would say, okay, go on, sin no more. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Whoever, all your accusers are gone. Make sure that you sin no more. Your sins are forgiven. All right, none of that talk is there. That sins are forgiven. None of that's there in that text. So she could have been divorced. You know what I'm saying? 5 different times because of barrenness, right? And being that you're barren like that, you would be a curse. Nobody would want to be around you. Okay. Nobody will want to be friends with, nobody will kick the bobo with you because you've been cursed by God to not have any children. All right, and this was actually a curse given out where the Most High made the earth curse this one family where they could not have children. I don't want none of his seeds, none of his line on the throne. I think it's Koniah or something like that. All right. So, another thing we had to point out is that she was there at an awkward time. She was there like in the heat of the day. A lot of times when they went to go get the well water, women, that was one of their main jobs. Early in the morning, they do that first thing. You know what I'm saying? Crack of dawn. First thing they do is go and get that well. And this is one of the gathering spots where people would meet up. I guess the women would talk about the day's work and what they had going on and gossip and blah blah blah. But she's going in the heat of the day, meaning she don't want to be around the women because the women probably think she's a reproach for some particular reason. Now we can't say, but it could be something like her being barren. And she can also be divorced 5 times because that particular brother dead. Them brothers died on her. You know what I'm saying? She could have had like one of them wounds like in the book of Tobit. That way every time somebody went in there, they died. You know what I'm saying? But whatever the case may be, we can't just assume that she was in sin because the text does not say that. The text don't say how she had 5 different husbands, but the text does say the text doesn't say also that she was in sin. You know what I'm saying? So I would suggest I would assume that she was not in sin, but that she was divorced either 5 times, or because of that, or what I'm saying, either that those husbands died for whatever reason it may be, and then she was taken in by someone else. Maybe because she was beautiful. If you have 5 husbands, you got to be a beautiful woman for 5 to come back and try to pick you through and say, you know what, he couldn't have a husband. Maybe it was him. You know what I'm saying? For you to step into that. But last example, man. I know we probably at about 30, 40 minutes right now. Last example I want to talk about was I want to say Absalom, David's son. David's son, man. And he goes into his sister, man, his half sister. And David's son brings, David's son calls her, pretends like he's sick. Calls his sister there. He's like, man, I want my sister to take care of me. I want my half sister to take care of me and feed me. And then he forces himself on his sister. Now, the crazy part about this, now you go back and read this in 2 Samuel 13. 2 Samuel chapter 13. You go back and read this. She tells him, like, listen, man, you don't have to do this like this. Don't rape me. Just go speak to Father. Just go speak to David and tell him you want to marry me. And I will gladly, you know what I'm saying? He gonna give you to me. But don't do it like this, right? Because if she knew that if he takes her, okay, if he takes her like that and doesn't want her, then she's done, man. Nobody's gonna want to go behind her. Nobody's, and she may possibly be gleaning the field. You know what I'm saying? She won't have no inheritance. Nothing's there to keep her in that position, to keep her in that kingdom, to keep her having a covering, unless somebody took her virginity from her, like Absalom did. And with him doing that, she ends up, she wore this colorful garment to say that she was a virgin. She ends up ripping that garment. You know what I'm saying? So mad because once he did rape her, he decided he didn't want nothing to do with her no more. And then she's saying, listen to the psyche. She's like, that's even worse. It's even worse, the fact that you raped me, and the fact that you're not gonna. And then that's to that whole sex is marriage thing too, man. She knew that wasn't the case. She knew that you couldn't just sleep with me and we gonna be married. All right, she was saying, listen, man, go talk to David and get this thing done properly, and he will arrange it, and we can do it. I ain't got a problem sleeping with you. And that gives me the point of that women, it wasn't a whole attraction thing. It wasn't, you know what I'm saying? It was different. They had a different mentality on how and why they chose. They didn't choose their husbands. They didn't choose their husbands. Their husbands chose them. They ain't have a choice. Oh, I want this, man. Look, this is what I want in a man. I want da. That wasn't the case. And we don't live in a society like that. Let's just be honest. So I see brothers just poofing and pouting. Well, the women don't do this. The women won't call me Lord, and the women won't do. And man, all women so wicked. They ain't nothing like, man. You don't know what you talking about, man. They're in a different, total different society. And you can't compare them to, they've been pulled totally out of that culture. And you're totally out of it. You're not doing what the men did then. You don't have the standards that a man did. I mean, we all be considered poor and beggars. Nobody gonna give you they daughter and you working for somebody else $15 an hour. You ain't got no land, you ain't got no inheritance to give her. Nobody finna deal with you. But these are the things that we have to we have to understand, man. Before we start bashing each other on, okay, you're not playing your role properly according to the text. We not playing our. Neither one of us are. We ain't doing it. Like, we got to stop calling it a biblical marriage. That ain't what you doing. That ain't what you doing. You doing like some kind of little hybrid thing, man. So in that, you know what I'm saying, make sure that it's all the way hybrid. Don't try to make all this biblical and then make some of this worldly. You know what I'm saying? You got to just deal with it as the times go. You kind of use wisdom within that, man. Because these women, most men wouldn't treat their women the way these women were being treated back in biblical times. Your psyche don't even have that in you. Your psyche don't even have that in you, man. Where you give your daughter away. No, you jokers ain't finna give your daughter away. No, Dad, I don't want to go. No, that ain't what that's who you going with. You ain't finna arrange no marriage for your daughter. You know what I'm saying? Y'all ain't got that in y'all. You letting her date whoever she with. I'm just gonna let her do, I'm gonna let her date. When she grow up, she can go to the prom and she's here talking to boy. Yeah, that ain't what they did biblical, man. Ain't nobody coming around my daughter. Nobody coming around my daughter talking about they finna, you know what I'm saying? She going out and she getting courted and they going to the movies and all this. No, man. She's already courted to be married to so and so family. She ain't even seen them. Just like the coming to America thing. You ain't got that in your mental. And this is how marriages were brought about, man. You know what I'm saying? So when you start mixing all those other emotions, those emotions aren't there. That infatuation, oh, I love him and he got this and he got that, like a lot of that's not in there. That's not in the text. A lot of those women slept with these men for their inheritance, man. There wasn't a lot of serenading going on. And just a lot of, besides the wisdom of Solomon, the Song of Solomon, you don't see a lot of serenade going on, man. Where, I just love the way he does it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, a little bit of that here in that Songs of Solomon. But majority of the times, man, these things were arranged. And these women already had that mental, that psyche. They weren't attached. That sex was a purpose for them. They wanted to get that man off so she can have him a son. So that was her security deposit. That was her, the prenup. That was her, that was going to save her, was that if anything happened, she got that son that's going to have that inheritance, right? That she can go back to. Now they use, like I say, now they're using prenups to try to trap you up, you know what I'm saying, to make sure that they have something. And they have the ketubas and stuff like that you need to draw up for marriages, etc. But you're supposed to be leaving these kids an inheritance. You don't have no inheritance to leave nobody. You kind of gotta humble down a little bit, man. You need to humble down a little bit on your requirements, and you're comparing your requirements to the woman biblically, and you don't have anything even to leave your children at the moment. You really failed biblically as a man. And so we have to look at that thing both ways and try to, try to do this thing as sensible as we can and using wisdom while we doing it also. All right.